There are purchases that make a man a legend and some that get him turned into a punchline by sundown. The day Hank Ellison signed the deed for 40 acres of wind-blown clay and cracked weeds, the news rippled down every back road and into every breakfast booth in Millersville. You should have heard the laughter at Elsie's Cafe. "That land's got less hope than a broom in a flood," someone crowed. "Old Hank just bought himself a dust bowl," another added, and the plates rattled with how hard folks slapped the table. Rumors grew bigger than the field itself. They said nothing had grown there since the drought of '68. No water, no value, not even wildflowers. He was a fool, they declared, wasting his savings on a stretch of earth better fit for rattlesnakes and ghosts. They couldn't imagine, not for a minute, the miracle that was waiting just beneath their feet. But they'd soon have a front-row seat to something no one could have predicted. Hank Ellison was not a man strangers remembered, but in Millersville, everyone had a story of when he'd helped patch a fence or carried groceries up a neighbor's steps. He'd grown up under the slow, wide skies just outside town, the son of a mechanic and a school secretary. His father passed before he finished high school, and Hank quit classes to keep food on the table for his mother and little sister. Over years of small-town hustle and sacrifice, Hank learned to fix anything but a broken heart. His family never had much land, only an acre garden and a chicken coop behind their worn front porch. But old stories from his grandfather dug deep in Hank, stories of, "If you own Earth, that Earth will look after you." Since his mother's passing, Hank lived alone in a rented room above the hardware store. He watched farms buy and sell, folks move on, and his dream of owning land pulled at him the way river water pulls at its banks. When 40 barren acres hit the county auction for next to nothing, Hank saw not weeds, but a last chance to plant his roots and prove the old stories true, even in a town that no longer believed in lost causes. The first spring, Hank did what any hopeful would: woke before dawn, shouldered battered tools, and turned over the stubborn ground with hands gone raw under gloves. The soil fought him with every stroke, coughing up stones. Instead of promise, he sowed clover and beans, hoping the roots would break the clay. By July, only scraggly shoots poked out and yellowed before the rains ever showed. Hank watched clouds gather and split, always raining a mile away, but never on his field. Every setback drew an eager audience. Pickups idled along the road, neighbors squinting through windows and shaking their heads. At Elsie's, the jokes ran thick. "Hank's crops are so thin, even the crows bring a lunch." He greeted their jabs with a tight smile and left his shopping for after sundown. But the words stuck longer than the dust on his boots. Alone among 40 acres of nothing, doubts crept in. Nights ran long, staring at the ceiling, wondering if everyone was right after all. Maybe some fields really are cursed. Tools wore out. Money thinned. Even old friends, gentle in their advice, hinted he might be smarter walking away. But every morning he rose and checked that cracked red soil. He believed, if not in luck, then in sweat. It was hope and pride holding him there, seed by stubborn seed, gambling everything on a risk nobody else could see. It was a morning after a hard night's rain that changed Hank's fortune. He walked the field, expecting puddles and more signs of failure, but something unusual caught his eye. In a corner by the rusted fence, the ground shimmered in the sunlight, pooling not rainwater, but a thin film of gold-tinted soil. Brushing it with his hand, Hank noticed flecks that sparkled, subtle, almost hidden where the runoff had cut a fresh channel. Curiosity sent him digging deeper, uncovering a layer of coarse, sandy gravel beneath the clay. Later that week, he stopped by the feed store for new gloves. Old Mr. Carson, who'd farmed these roads for 60 years, leaned on the counter and asked Hank if he'd ever wondered why nothing sprouted out there. When Hank mentioned the strange soil, Carson's eyes lit up. "That isn't just sand," he said quietly. "That's alluvial grit from the creek's old bed. Land like that never holds water. But it'll hold something else if you know what to look for." He spoke of rare wildflowers, deep-rooted herbs, even a patchwork of fool's gold that once drew prospectors. Suddenly, Hank realized he hadn't just bought failure. He might be standing on ground with secrets waiting for the right hands to unlock. Hank went home that evening with a mind swirling, refusing to let the old doubts take root. If this land was different, maybe it needed different answers. Instead of plowing row after row, he started digging soil pits across the property, mapping each layer by hand. He studied the runoff channels and tested the sandy patches with homemade pH kits and borrowed garden tools, slowly learning that the field wasn't one lost cause, but a dozen small microclimates stitched together. Where others saw barren waste, Hank saw a puzzle waiting to be solved. He attended free county extension classes, read up on wild prairie restoration, and even phoned a botanist at the state university. When he learned about drought-tolerant crops and flowers that thrive in poor, sandy soil, hope flared again. Hank risked his last savings on native wildflower seeds, golden yarrow, and a mix of sunchokes and specialty herbs, plants with roots eager to chase water deep below the surface. Week by week, he scattered seed by hand and covered bare patches with straw salvaged from friendly neighbors. That spring, where everyone expected stunted weeds, life stirred. Shoots of gold flashed across the shallowest ridges by mid-May. Bees circled the yarrow as petals opened, and a scent hung over the field at sunrise. Sweet, new, impossible only months before Hank documented every success and failure, sharing photos in online forums where strangers cheered results that locals still doubted evenings. He'd ride his bicycle the length of the boundary, marveling at what patience and a willingness to try the untried could conjure from a place shunned by generations. The first real harvest, buckets of cut flowers and sacks of hardy herbs, glowed brighter than anything he'd ever seen. He wasn't just nurturing plants, he was bringing hidden gold into the daylight. By midsummer, cars slowed along the dusty road that skirted Hank's field. Color swept across the acreage like something from another world. Waves of gold and purple wildflowers where everyone expected nothing but gray bees darted. Sun warmed the air, and a scent drifted so sweet it made passers-by double back just to breathe it again. At first, the locals wouldn't admit what they saw. Old habits die hard, and teasing came easier than praise. But gossip turned from ridicule to curiosity. Elsie's cafe fell quiet one noon when Jeff Perkins, the loudest skeptic, set his coffee down and announced, "Drove past Hank's place this morning. Looks like a field of treasure out there." Kids on summer break snuck through the hedges to pick bouquets for their mothers. Neighbors who once gave sidelong glances now leaned on Hank's fence, voices softer, asking, "What did you plant? What's your secret?" Folks stopped calling the land cursed and started calling it beautiful. Hank watched all this unfold with a humility that made the change even more astonishing. Months before, laughter echoed at his back. Now the same voices buzzed with awe and, for the first time in years, a little hope for the unexpected. Just as Hank's hard-won glory began to settle in, the skies shut tight for 7 relentless weeks. Day after day, sun rose and fell over cracked ground, wilting even the toughest plants. The golden blooms dulled and leaves shriveled at the tips, and neighbors whispered again that the miracle was ending. "Told you, "Nothing good sticks in that soil," came the old refrain. Even worse, a letter from the county arrived, some technicality about invasive species, threatening fines if Hank couldn't prove every wildflower was local stock. Doubt returned with a vengeance, heavy as the heat. Hank's nights grew restless, worry gnawing at every decision. Was all his effort about to blow away like dust? The field he fought for with sweat and hope now felt as fragile as the rain that would not come. The test wasn't only survival, it was whether he could claim this land's promise even as odds stacked higher than ever before. When the clouds finally broke in late August, a soft rain swept across the field, soaking deep into the sandy grit. To everyone's astonishment, Hank's chosen plants, golden yarrow, deep-rooted herbs, and prairie flowers, surged back to life. The wildflowers bloomed brighter than ever, putting on a late show of color that stopped folks in their tracks. Hank, prepared for the county, handed over proof of every seed's origin, proudly showing records and photos. The inspector, who'd arrived expecting trouble, left with an armful of fresh-cut flowers and a quiet smile. Neighbors who once mocked were first in line at Hank's gate, asking for seed, tips, and cuttings. Old-timers tipped their hats, and even Jeff Perkins brought his grandson to walk the rows and listen as Hank explained drainage and deep root systems. The field's beauty became the pride of Millersville, drawing visitors who'd never stopped before. Hank didn't crow or gloat. Instead, he put his energy into teaching others what the land had taught him. Sometimes gold isn't just in the soil, it's in the guts to see what others miss, and the patience to wait for reward. The laughter faded, replaced by respect that ran even deeper than roots. Some fields look empty until you know where to dig. Hank's story isn't just about one man's stubborn hope or a plot of land gone golden. It's a reminder that real riches are often buried where everyone else says there's nothing left to find. Maybe you've known a place, a project, or a person written off as wasted, only to see beauty or worth emerge where nobody expected it. If you've got a story of second chances and quiet triumphs, share it below. Your experience could light up someone else's barren ground. In every patch of overlooked earth, there's the possibility of transformation, if you're willing to see with patient eyes and work with steady hands. Subscribe and join our community where underdogs and dreamers prove time and again that treasure is often hidden in plain sight. Let's keep searching for the gold together, right here,